The betrayal. The alien woman was named Lyra. She was born in a proud warrior clan, a people who believed only the strongest deserved honor. Her family carried heavy weapons, wore shining armor, and trained every day for battle. Lyra had always been different. She was smaller, her spirit kinder, and her heart softer than the others. She did not crave war. She loved the stars, the quiet nights, and the songs of her ancestors. But to her family, this was weakness. On a cold evening, the clan gathered in the center of their stone village. The torches burned bright, shadows stretching across the walls. Her father, a tall warrior with a scar across his face, stood in front of the people. His voice was loud and cruel as he called out Lyra's name. She stepped forward, trembling, unsure of what crime they had declared against her. "You are no daughter of mine," her father shouted, the words cut like a blade. He accused her of shaming their bloodline. He said she lacked strength. He said her kindness made her unworthy. He said a daughter who showed mercy had no place among warriors. Her mother, standing beside him, did not speak. Her eyes were cold, her arms crossed. Not a single hand reached out for Lyra. Not a single voice defended her. She realized in that moment she was alone. The clan's council gave the order. She was to be cast out, banished from her home, stripped of food, stripped of her name, and left with only the rags she wore. The warriors dragged her to the edge of the village. Her brother spat at her feet, saying she was nothing. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to beg. If they saw her cry, they would laugh, so she turned her face away, hiding her pain in silence. The gates closed behind her with a heavy sound. The night air was cold. The ground beneath her bare feet was hard. The stars above seemed sharp and distant. She walked into the darkness with nothing but the echo of her father's words. "You are not my daughter." For hours, she wandered across the rocky land. The wind howled through the trees, cutting into her skin. Her stomach ached with hunger, her lips dry from thirst. She tried to remember the warmth of her home, but now it felt like a dream slipping away. She had been born in that village, trained in its halls, but now she was no one. Each step grew heavier. Her strength faded quickly without food. She thought about her childhood, the moments when she had tried to prove herself. She remembered training with her brother, always failing to match his strikes. She remembered her father's eyes filled with disappointment. She remembered her mother's silence, colder than any word. The pain of betrayal was worse than hunger. It was worse than the cold. It was a wound that could not be healed. Lyra whispered to herself in the dark, asking why her family hated her, asking why kindness was seen as weakness. She wanted to believe she still had value, but alone in the night, she felt worthless. Her legs finally gave out, and she fell onto the rough earth. The stones cut into her knees, but she had no strength to rise. She lay there, trembling, wrapping her thin arms around herself. The world was quiet, except for the sound of her own shallow breathing. For a moment, she thought about ending it, letting the night take her. She imagined the cold wrapping around her until she was nothing. Her family would not care. They would say it was the fate of the weak. Her brother would laugh. Her father would feel pride, and her mother would not shed a tear. But inside her heart, a small flame refused to die. Even if the world had abandoned her, even if her family called her worthless, she still wanted to live. She still wanted to see the stars again. She still wanted to prove that mercy, that kindness, that softness could be stronger than steel. She forced herself to crawl to a tree, leaning against its trunk. Her breath was weak, her body shivering, but her eyes still looked to the sky. The stars above seemed endless. She whispered a vow, a promise to herself. "I will not end here." As the night deepened, the wind carried strange sounds, a distant hum, a rhythm unlike anything from her village. Her heart raced with fear. Was it hunters from her clan, coming to finish her? Or was it something else, something unknown? Her eyes grew heavy, and darkness pressed against her vision. She fought to stay awake, but her body was too weak. As she slipped into unconsciousness, the last thought in her mind was a question. Would anyone ever see her as worthy? Would anyone ever save her from this cruel fate? The night carried her into silence, leaving only the faint sound of footsteps approaching through the shadows. A chance encounter. When the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the forest was still, the air was heavy with mist, and every shadow looked alive. Lyra lay weak beneath the old tree, her breath shallow, her skin pale. She was slipping between dreams and reality, her mind replaying the cruel voices of her family. But then, through the silence, came a new sound, a steady rhythm of boots pressing against the ground. A figure moved through the mist, tall, broad-shouldered, with a pack on his back. He was not of her kind. His skin was pale, his hair dark, his eyes sharp with focus. He was human. Captain Daniel had traveled these lands for weeks, mapping unknown paths and searching for resources. He was used to the dangers of alien worlds. He knew every corner could hide claws, teeth, or poison. Yet when he saw the shape lying beneath the tree, his steps slowed. It was not a predator. It was someone broken, someone abandoned. Daniel knelt beside her. His eyes widened when he saw her face. Her features were alien, silver markings across her skin, pointed ridges above her brows, and eyes that glowed faintly even in weakness. He had studied many species, but never this close. She looked fragile, yet something about her felt powerful. He touched her shoulder lightly. Her body flinched. She opened her eyes, half awake, and fear filled them. She tried to crawl away, but she had no strength. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Leave me." Daniel shook his head. "You're dying," he said firmly. His voice carried no cruelty, only truth. He opened his pack and pulled out a flask of water, holding it near her lips. At first she turned away, pride and fear holding her back. Why would a stranger, especially a human, show kindness when her own family had shown none? But her throat burned like fire. Her lips cracked. Her body betrayed her. Slowly, she took a sip. The water felt like life itself. Her eyes closed, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "Easy," Daniel said softly, letting her drink slowly. His hand was steady, his eyes calm. There was no judgment in his gaze, only concern. It confused her, it frightened her. "Why?" she managed to whisper. Her voice was weak. "Why would you help me?" Daniel looked at her for a long moment. His answer was simple. "Because you need it." The words struck her harder than her father's rejection. A stranger, a human, could see her worth when her own blood had not. Her chest tightened, but she could not find words to answer. Daniel did not waste time. He checked her pulse, studied her wounds, and gave her a small piece of ration bread. She chewed slowly, her body trembling with both hunger and shame. She hated feeling weak before him, yet at the same time, she felt something she had not felt in days, safe. As the sun rose higher, Daniel lifted her carefully. She tried to resist, whispering that she could walk, but her legs betrayed her and gave out. He carried her across the forest, his steps steady, his grip firm. She rested her head against his shoulder, every breath filled with confusion. Why would this human, who owed her nothing, risk slowing his journey to save her? Through the trees, they reached a small outpost hidden between rocks. It was Daniel's camp, a modest shelter of metal sheets, solar lamps, and human tools. To Lyra, it was strange, unfamiliar, yet filled with a quiet strength. He placed her gently on a bedroll, giving her warmth from a thermal blanket. She felt her body relax, though her mind still battled fear. She stared at him as he worked, cleaning her wounds, giving her medicine, speaking to her in a calm tone. She wanted to ask why again. She wanted to push him away, but deep inside, her heart whispered a dangerous thought. Maybe this human cared more than her family ever did. Night came, and the stars returned. Lyra lay awake, watching the glow of the firelight on Daniel's face. His eyes were focused, his hands steady as he repaired his equipment. He did not look at her with scorn. He did not call her weak. He treated her as if she mattered. And for the first time since her exile, Lyra felt a flicker of hope. But in the distance, unseen to them both, other eyes were watching. Shadows moved beyond the trees. Whispers carried through the wind. Her family's betrayal had not ended. Her presence with a human would not remain a secret for long. A fragile trust. The fire cracked softly inside the human's outpost. Its warmth wrapped the small shelter in a fragile peace. Lyra lay under the blanket Daniel had given her, her body weak, her mind restless. She had been saved, but she could not silence the storm inside her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of her family, her father's cruel voice, her brother's mocking eyes, her mother's silence colder than ice. Their rejection burned in her chest. and now another thought haunted her. What if this human was no different? What if his kindness was only a mask? Daniel sat nearby, working with his hands, repairing a damaged scanner. The glow of the firelight caught the edge of his face. Calm, focused, steady. He had not asked her who she was. He had not asked why she was alone in the forest. He had only offered food, water, and safety. To Lyra, this silence was strange. No one in her clan would ever ignore a weakness, yet he did not press her. She turned her face away, whispering under her breath, "Why?" Her voice was low, meant only for herself, but Daniel looked up, his sharp eyes catching her expression. "Why what?" he asked, his tone gentle. Lyra hesitated. Her pride and fear warred inside her. She finally said, "Why do you not question me? You know I am not human. You know I do not belong here. Yet you treat me as if I do." Daniel set down the scanner. His gaze met hers without flinching. "Because sometimes questions wound more than silence," he replied. "And you have enough wounds already." The words struck her like a blade, not in cruelty, but in truth. For a long time she stared at him, her glowing eyes softening against her will. Yet still, she did not trust easily. She had been betrayed by those closest to her. How could she trust a stranger from another world? Later that night, as the fire dimmed, Daniel placed another ration bar near her side. "Eat," he said simply. She shook her head, turning away, pride and shame twisted inside her. Accepting food from him felt like admitting weakness. Daniel did not argue. He did not force her. He simply left it by her hand. Then he leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes. Resting, she looked at him in confusion. No warrior in her clan would have done that. They would have mocked her refusal. They would have demanded obedience. But this human left the choice to her. Her hunger gnawed at her until the pain became unbearable. Slowly, she reached for the ration bar, tearing it open with trembling fingers. The taste was strange but warm, and for the first time since exile, she felt strength returning. She ate in silence, her eyes never leaving Daniel. When dawn returned, she found him outside, standing guard with his rifle across his shoulder. His figure looked sharp against the rising sun. He seemed like a man carved from stone, strong, patient, unshaken. Something inside her stirred, a feeling she had never known before. Daniel noticed her watching and gave a small nod. "You're stronger today," he said. "Your color has returned." She blinked at his words. No one in her clan had ever spoken of her strength. They had only spoken of her weakness. The simple recognition in his voice felt heavier than any weapon. Yet her trust was still fragile. Her eyes narrowed as she asked, "You do not fear me?" Daniel gave a faint smile. "Should I? I am alien," she said bitterly. "My people despise your kind. They call you invaders. They call you unworthy of the stars." He shrugged. "I don't measure worth by names, only by actions." He glanced at her, his eyes firm. "And I see no threat in you, only someone who deserves to live." Lyra's chest tightened. She wanted to believe his words. She wanted to let his warmth enter her frozen heart. But fear still chained her. Trust was dangerous. Trust could kill. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Daniel fell asleep near the fire, his breathing steady, his rifle resting by his side. Lyra lay awake, staring at him. She could end his life in that moment if she wished. Her alien strength had not fully returned, but she could take the weapon. Yet as she watched the calm on his face, she realized the truth. He had given her a choice. He had given her safety. He had given her something she thought no one could ever give again: respect. Her hands trembled as she pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Her eyes burned with tears she tried to hide. She whispered into the night, "Why do I feel safer with a human than with my own blood?" But unknown to both of them, danger crept closer, far beyond the forest. Voices carried news of a human harboring an alien exile. Warriors prepared their blades. Shadows gathered. Her family's betrayal was not finished, and soon, trust would be tested in fire. Shadows of the past. The silence of the forest was broken by the sound of steel clashing in the distance. Not at Daniel's camp, but far away in the alien village where Lyra's family lived. In the council hall, her brother stood before the elders. His fists were clenched, his eyes burning with rage. "She has been seen," he growled. His voice echoed against the stone walls. "The outcast lives, Worse, she hides under the protection of a human. The elders stirred. Some whispered in anger, others in disbelief. To them, nothing was more shameful than an exile finding shelter, especially with a creature they considered lesser. Lyra's brother slammed his blade on the ground, sparks flying. She should have died in the cold. She should have vanished. But now, she stains our honor. If she lives, our bloodline is mocked. His father nodded, silent but stern. His mother's eyes were colder than the stars. They gave their command without hesitation. Finish it. Bring her back dead, and kill the human who dares to shield her. Meanwhile, in Daniel's camp, Lyra stirred awake. The night air carried unease. She looked around. The fire was low. Daniel sat sharpening a blade quietly, his face calm, but his eyes alert. He had heard something too. A distant echo carried on the wind. Lyra pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Her heart raced. She felt it. A presence, a shadow that belonged to her past. She whispered, "They know." Daniel glanced at her. "Who knows?" "My family," she answered, her voice cracked. "They will come. They will not forgive me, and they will not forgive you." Daniel did not flinch. He slid the blade back into its sheath and met her glowing eyes. "Let them come," he said calmly. "I've faced worse than shadows." Lyra shook her head. Fear and anger mixed in her voice. "You don't understand. They are not like you. They hunt as a pack. They will not stop until blood falls on the ground." Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady. "Then tell me why they cast you out." For the first time, she spoke the truth aloud. Her voice trembled. "Because I was different. Because I showed mercy. Because I was weak in their eyes. My kindness was their shame." Tears burned her cheeks. They would rather kill their own blood than admit a gentle heart has value. Daniel listened without interruption. His eyes did not show pity, only a deep, steady strength. When she finished, he said, "Then their judgment is worthless. You are not weak. You are still here. That is strength." Lyra's chest ached. She had longed to hear such words all her life. Yet fear gripped her tighter. Shadows were already moving beyond the forest. She could feel them in her bones. Her brother's hatred was coming closer. That night, she dreamed of her exile again. But this time the fire was brighter, the voices sharper. She saw her brother's eyes, filled not just with hate, but with hunger for power. He wanted her death to prove his worth. She woke with a start, breathless, Daniel's rifle already in his hand. "Something's moving," he whispered, his voice low, his gaze fixed on the tree line. Shapes slipped between the shadows, silent and quick. The air grew colder. Lyra's skin prickled. She knew that gait, that movement, the discipline of trained hunters. They were close, too close. Daniel motioned for her to stay down. He raised his weapon slowly, his face calm as stone. Lyra's heart pounded. The man she had known only for 2 nights was now preparing to stand against the very clan that had raised her. A low growl echoed through the trees, and then silence. The hunters had arrived. Waiting, circling. Daniel's voice cut the tension, steady as iron. "They want you," he said, his eyes on the forest. "But they will find me first." Lyra trembled, torn between fear and a new fire rising in her chest. She had been cast out, abandoned, betrayed. But now, for the first time, someone was willing to stand with her against the darkness. The shadows pressed closer. The night thickened. The battle of blood and loyalty was about to begin. The attack. The night broke with fire. It began with a whistle through the trees. A glowing spear struck the ground just a few feet from Daniel's camp. The earth shook, sparks flew, and the silence shattered. Daniel rose instantly, rifle in hand, his eyes sharp and cold. Lyra gasped, her heart racing. She knew that weapon. She knew the mark carved into its shaft. It was her brother's. Figures emerged from the mist, tall and armored. Their blades glimmered like silver under the moon. Their eyes burned with fury. The hunters of her clan had come. "Lyra," a voice roared. Her brother stepped forward, his armor gleaming, his face twisted in rage. "You bring shame to our blood. You hide behind a human's shadow. Come out and face your death." Lyra froze. Her body trembled. Memories of her exile rushed back. The spit at her feet, the gates slamming shut, the cold night she was forced to walk into. But now it was worse. Her brother was not only here for her. He wanted Daniel's blood too. Daniel stepped in front of her, his rifle aimed steady. His voice was calm, but carried steel. "She is under my protection." The hunters laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the trees. "A human protecting one of us." One sneered. "Pathetic. You will both die tonight." Without warning, the attack began. Spears flew through the air. Daniel rolled to the side, firing sharp bursts of light from his rifle. Two hunters fell, but more advanced. Their movements were fast, coordinated, trained for war. Daniel fired again, each shot precise, but the numbers pressed him hard. Lyra's chest burned with fear. She wanted to move, to fight, but her body shook with weakness. She clenched her fists, watching the man who had given her food, water, and hope stand alone against her clan. Her brother charged forward, his blade aimed straight for Daniel. Sparks exploded as metal clashed against the rifle. Daniel blocked with the weapon's frame, but the force sent him stumbling. Lyra's voice tore from her throat. "No." Something inside her broke free. A fire she thought was dead ignited. She grabbed a fallen spear, her hands trembling but her eyes fierce. Her brother turned, shocked to see her stand. "You dare," he hissed. "You, who were cast out, dare raise a weapon." "Yes," she whispered, her voice steady. "Because he stood for me when no one else did." The hunters lunged at Daniel again, but this time Lyra moved. Her strike was clumsy, weak compared to their training, but it was filled with desperate strength. The spear cut through the air, grazing one warrior's arm. Blood spilled, and for the first time, her family saw that she would not die silently. Daniel seized the moment, firing another burst. The forest lit with flashes of light and screams. The hunters retreated a few steps, regrouping. Her brother snarled, his face twisted with fury. "You shame us even more, Lyra. Better you had frozen in the dark than stand with this human." But Lyra's eyes glowed with defiance, her breath heavy, her grip firm on the spear. Better shame with truth than honor built on cruelty. The hunters roared in anger, preparing for another charge. Daniel stood at her side, rifle steady, his voice low. "Stay with me." She nodded, for the first time not as a broken exile, but as someone ready to fight. The night turned into fire and steel. The outcast and the human stood shoulder to shoulder as shadows closed in, and though the odds were against them, neither moved, neither bent. The first true battle of her new life had begun. The turning point. The forest burned with the clash of steel and fire. Sparks lit the night sky as hunters circled the camp. Their shadows moved like wolves, swift and merciless. Daniel stood firm, his rifle hot from firing, smoke rising from its barrel. Beside him, Lyra gripped the spear, her hands trembling but her heart steady. The hunters attacked again, blades slashed, arrows hissed through the air. Daniel shot 2 down, but 3 more rushed from the sides. The outpost shook under their assault. For a moment, it seemed impossible, Daniel against so many, and Lyra barely standing. Her brother stepped forward, his armor glowing in the firelight. His eyes were wild, his voice thundered. "You are nothing, Lyra. You were born weak. You will die weak." The words struck her like a blade, but instead of breaking her, they fueled her. Memories flooded her mind. The night she was cast out, the cold ground beneath her, the hunger, the loneliness, and then the memory of Daniel's voice, calm and firm. "You are not weak. You are still here." Her heart roared, a fire bursting inside her chest. She raised the spear high, and with a cry that split the night, she charged. The hunters turned in shock as the outcast they once mocked fought with fury. Her strike cut through one's armor, sparks flying as he fell back. Her movements were rough, untrained, but her spirit carried her blade stronger than steel. Daniel covered her flank, firing into the shadows. Their movements became one rhythm, his rifle and her spear, human precision and alien instinct, fighting side by side. Her brother lunged at her, their weapons clashing. Sparks exploded as his blade struck against her spear. The impact shook her arms, but she did not fall. She pushed back, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her brother snarled, "You are no sister of mine. And you," she spat through clenched teeth, "are no family to me." With a surge of strength, she twisted the spear and forced him back. His eyes widened in shock. Never had she stood against him. Never had she fought with such fire. For the first time, He saw the power in her, not as a weakness, but as something unstoppable. The hunters faltered, their formation broken. Daniel's shots cut them down one by one. Lyra's voice rose above the chaos, a battle cry born not of hatred, but of survival. Her brother fell to one knee, his blade slipping from his hand. His eyes burned with anger, but also something else, fear. He gasped, clutching his wound. "You are stronger than I thought." His words dripped with both hatred and reluctant truth. Lyra stood over him, her chest heaving, her spear aimed at his throat. For a moment, silence filled the forest. Every hunter froze, waiting for her to strike, waiting to see if she would kill her own blood. Daniel's voice reached her softly, "Steady. It's your choice." Her hands shook. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She could end it now, prove herself the way her clan always demanded, with blood. But in that moment, she remembered why she was cast out. She remembered the mercy that had once been called weakness, and she knew the truth. She lowered the spear. Her voice rang clear. "I will not kill you. Mercy is my strength, not my shame." Her brother's face twisted with confusion, his pride shattered. He staggered back, unable to meet her eyes. The hunters, leaderless and broken, began to retreat into the shadows. Daniel stepped beside her, his rifle lowering. His eyes met hers, calm and proud. "You found your strength," he said. Lyra's hands trembled, her body aching. But for the first time since exile, she did not feel worthless. She felt alive, powerful, unbroken. The fire burned low. The night grew quiet. The battle was over. But her journey was only beginning. A new beginning. The forest was quiet after the storm of battle. Ash and broken weapons littered the ground. The hunters had fled into the night, carrying their wounded pride with them. Only Daniel and Lyra remained standing, their breaths heavy, their bodies scarred but unbroken. The fire at the outpost flickered weakly, casting long shadows across their faces. Daniel lowered his rifle, his steady hands finally relaxing. Lyra dropped the spear, her arms trembling. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks, not of weakness, but of release. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, filled with all the unspoken truths of the night. Finally, Daniel sat beside her, his voice calm. "You fought well." Lyra shook her head. "I was clumsy. I was afraid." Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's standing even when fear grips you. His words sank deep into her heart. For years she had been told she was weak, that her kindness was shame, that her heart was a burden. But now she had stood against blades, against her own blood, and she had chosen mercy over vengeance. She realized Daniel was right. This was not weakness. This was her strength. The stars glowed above them, vast and endless. Lyra lifted her gaze, whispering, "I have no home now, no family, no place in the world." Daniel turned his eyes to the sky as well, his voice steady. "Then make a new one. The stars are wide, and no one decides your worth but you." Her chest tightened. The man who owed her nothing, the human she had been taught to despise, had given her what her clan never did: choice, dignity, and hope. In the days that followed, Lyra began to heal. She stayed in Daniel's camp, learning the strange tools of humans, tasting their food, hearing their stories. She helped gather supplies, tended the fire, and stood watch beside him. At first, she felt like a guest, but slowly, it began to feel like something more, a partnership. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Daniel handed her a small device, a communicator. He said simply, "If you stay with me, you'll need this. I don't plan to fight alone." Lyra took it, her hands trembling slightly. A smile, faint but real, touched her lips. "Then I will stay. I will fight. I will live." Her voice carried not the weakness her family had accused her of, but a quiet strength, a strength born from pain, survival, and choice. That night, she stood outside the camp, the stars glittering above. She whispered softly, "Cast out by my own blood, but saved by a human heart." Her eyes shone with both sorrow and hope. She knew the past would always haunt her, but the future was no longer empty. Beside her, Daniel adjusted his rifle and looked out at the horizon. "The galaxy is wide. Lyra, and it doesn't belong only to those who call themselves strong. She nodded, her eyes burning with new fire. Then let's show them what strength truly means. The camera of the stars closed around them, the human and the outcast, no longer strangers, no longer broken, but walking forward into a new beginning. And in the silence of the universe, destiny whispered, this was only the start.